I'm just going to pause it and try starting it again. Can everybody see it now? I've changed it to slideshow mode. No. I see, okay. Still the same. Okay, so now it's changing, right? Okay. Okay. Okay, so now it's changed, right? Great. So I'll just go straight to this slide, just to give you guys an outline again of the workshop today. So we're going to start with community participation and why we chose gaming in our approach. Then we're going to go on to the Minigrid Game, and I'll describe what the game is. And then we're going to share with you some experiences from a previous series of workshops that we've held in Sabah in East Malaysia. And then we'll have a quick break and then be able to have the opportunity to try the game online before moving on to our knowledge exchange session, where we'd like to actually hear from all of you on your thoughts on the game, as well as how you usually practice community engagement in your work. So I'll just repeat, if you have any questions, could you please keep them for the end of the presentation before we play the game. So community participation, and I think, as most of you would know as energy practitioners, it's extremely important to have sufficient community participation while planning a community microgrid. You need to be able to understand a community's energy demand and ability to pay in order to plan and size the system appropriately. If you oversize the system, it becomes too expensive and challenging for cost recovery. And if you undersize the system, it's insufficient to meet demand, and people will quickly lose confidence in the system. Even if you've sized it appropriately without community buy-in, it can lead to a lot of mismatched expectations and just poor management of the system or system policies at the community level. And this can also lead to poor cost recovery without effective enforcement of your policies. And so having strong community investment and cooperation is important to help mitigate some of these challenges that we commonly see. Now, when I say strong community participation, there are different levels of participation and engagement. At the minimum, I think we all agree that we do require participation in the form of receiving information from the community in order to inform our system design. But if you move one level up the participation ladder, it starts to become a more two-way process where community users are also being informed and educated on how the system works, and it strengthens their ability and motivation to take care of the system. But in our approach, we say, why stop there? Why not go to even higher levels of participation where they start to take on the role of collaboratively designing and developing their own systems. They take ownership of the system, and they use their existing structures and institutions in the community to do this. So how can we enable this? So how can we climb those levels of participation and really achieve that two-way exchange process, especially where, to a level where communities can actually participate in developing their own microgrid system? So conventional approaches to community participation in microgrid planning oftentimes includes surveys, interviews, and presentations or workshops. And these can be very useful in eliciting information needed to design a microgrid, but doesn't always achieve that two-way exchange where community users are also learning. And these approaches can also be sometimes somewhat limiting if they tend to focus only on extracting technical or financial information and don't provide a complete understanding of the community and how they interact with each other or how they manage their resources. So we tried to think of how we could develop a process to achieve all these gaps. And so we decided, let's start with playing a game. I'm going to give you 30 seconds to spot the differences in these two pictures displayed here. Okay, so looking at this, how many were we able to spot at most? And feel free to type in your answers here. I can spot about ceiling lights, okay. That's one. I can spot the center guy has a little is a little more shaven in the right side, on the right side. Yep, the forefinger, right? The cube in the guy on the right, right? So we can see quite a few differences, right? And I'm hoping that through this, the sideburn, that's right. And I'm hoping that through this short exercise, everyone kind of sat up a little straighter and paid better attention than in the last few minutes of me kind of talking at you, right? I hope. So a game, we feel, can really create a more playful environment where people feel more interested and engaged. And when you play a game, it's also a really great way to simulate different experiences or choices and decisions that people can make, and for them to immediately see the results of these choices in a safer environment. They take on active roles in decision making in the game, and if the game is cooperative, it allows for discussion and collaboration and coming to consensus on what to do together as a group. So, and also one of the best parts of the game is that people can explore all these decisions that they may not normally make in real life. So we're talking about taboo topics such as taboo topics, or maybe even slightly deviant behavior that you might not normally do in real life. So our Minigrid game is both a participatory educational and also a design tool. So it simulates a microgrid so that people can understand operations and economics behind operating a microgrid. But it's also a design tool because users can collaboratively decide on design parameters such as system size, tariffs, and management schemes on how to actually enforce all these policies. So if you're asking what the Minigrid game is, well, it's a network game currently played on computers with this goal to collaboratively design a renewable energy mini-grid that enables the community to thrive at present into the future. And I know this is kind of like a high-level goal, but we hope that you'll see this throughout the game process. So let me describe the mini-grid game a little better. In the game, you have a system operator, and the system operator will create a community microgrid, will input all the system settings and designs, and then you have household players with this view of their household where they can actually buy appliances, turn on and off their appliances, and pay their household bills. So in between all this gameplay, the users can collaboratively discuss issues that arise from the game simulation. Things like, have we hit the peak? Should we change the system size? Is the tariff too expensive for us? And all these decisions can be made during discussions of the game, and the system operator can change the system parameters. So I'll show you a quick video of how we normally play the game. So this is the system operator entering inputs and creating the community. So you can change it, you can actually set it to a microhydro or a solar system. You can change it to an energy-based tariff, a flat rate, or a prepaid system, and enter households' monthly incomes. And then households can also buy their appliances and put it in their houses. So you can buy appliances. Each household has a cash box or a budget. And then you can turn on and off appliances. And if you notice on the upper right side, there's a clock. And the clock will start and you can actually turn on and off appliances. So as the clock runs and people are turning on and off their appliances, the game aggregates all consumption and you can view it on the operator page as total system consumption through a system or community-sized load profile. On the operator view, you get to see how much the users are consuming, how much the system is using as well, the system status, whether it's on or overloaded or off. You also get the LCOE, the tariff, and then on the household side, you get to see individual household load profiles under the power usage, and on the bottom right side, you get an overview of household parameters as well. At the end of a simulation round, the game stops at roughly 3 game days, not roughly, at exact 3 game days, and then it actually extrapolates to a month so that households can pay monthly energy bills. And then the operator also pays from a community fund the cost of the system for that month. So in the broader planning process, if you think about sort of the stages of microgrid energy planning, the Minigrid game really fits into the participatory planning process. Before you have the community confirm their commitment, they can make a more informed decision. So any questions so far on the game? Okay, so I'm going to continue then and share how we've played the game in 3 communities in Sabah and East Malaysia. And so last June, a small team from Energy Action Partners traveled to East Malaysia, to the Ulu Papar district of Sabah. And we played the game in 3 local communities there. Now the 3 villages share similar contexts. All 3 communities have a very strong sense of community identity and have existing institutions and governing structures where they already share common resources such as water and labor when building community infrastructure. However, they are still quite remote and currently depend on an unpaved logging track to travel to the nearest town, and they have limited data connectivity. The 3 villages are also at 3 different levels of energy development. We have the 3 villages, Kampung Terian, Kampung Buayan, and Kampung Timpayasa. Kampung Terian and Kampung Buayan both have microhydro systems, while Kampung Timpayasa does not have a microhydro system or a microgrid system. Kampung Terian has a microhydro system that's not functioning currently. So a lot of the households have actually resorted to self-installed solar home systems. Kampung Buayan still has a functioning microhydro system, and they currently use a prepaid metering system. A few houses do have backup systems in the form of diesel generators or solar home systems. And Kampong Timpayasa is the smallest village with about 12 households, and they currently use flashlights for lighting, and a few houses there have diesel generators. All three villages use firewood and LPG for cooking, and they're mostly a farming community and also fish and hunt. So the way we played the Minigrid game was that we actually arrived in the village days before we were scheduled to hold the individual workshops at all three villages. Now we did this so that we could actually conduct some social mapping activities. And these social mapping activities were in the form of informal interviews where we actually tried to understand a little better their energy situation, their ability to pay, how they viewed the energy system, and sort of what they anticipated were the best solutions for their energy needs. And so these kind of helped us to inform how we were going to play the game, as well as helped us set certain parameters or settings that we were going to play for the game. Basically helped us to calibrate the game. Each workshop lasted approximately 2 to 3 hours. We had the communities break out into smaller groups where they were actually household teams, while an operator from our side facilitated the game and discussions. So this was in Kampong Terian, the village that has a non-functioning microhydro system. We got about 20 participants from their village, ranging between the ages of 10 to 45, and we had 8 household teams. And as you can see, quite a lot of children actually showed up to join in the game. And so that's a good part of, good thing about the game is that it actually encourages a wide range of ages to be able to participate in the game. So this is Kampong Buayan. In Kampong Buayan, we had about 30 participants. It's a larger village in general. It has about 30 households. The age range here was wider since it's a larger village. We were able to actually get people ranging up to 55 years of age. They still broke off into about 8 groups, 8 household teams, and as you can see, it's a little bit more cramped here because we have more people here. Kampong Timpayasa is the smallest village out of the 3. It has about 12 households. And so we got about 10 participants from Timpayasa and broke into 5 small groups of 2 to 3 people. We also got a wide range of ages playing in Timpayasa from 10 to 55 years of age. So the main outcomes or the main lessons that we actually took away from playing these 3 games, in all 3 villages, they used their existing community governance structures to actually make decisions. All 3 communities are they've got a very strong sort of governing structure where they don't tend to make decisions on their own without sort of the collective decision, the collective agreement of the community. And so even within the game, we saw a lot of cooperation and collaboration. And when we tried to suggest different solutions, they would always look to their community values and sort of their existing structures to use that process to make that decision. All 3 villages actually preferred using the prepaid system over the flat rates or the energy-based tariff system. This was due mostly to the fact that with a prepaid system, you can immediately see collection of of funds into the community fund. For Kampung Turian, where there's a non-functioning microhydro system, they used to actually use a flat rate tariff. So they had never used a prepaid system, so this was something new for them in the game. And they actually expressed interest to continue using the game in more workshops with the rest of the community, actually with all the other community members that hadn't showed up, so that they could actually explore different tariffs. With Kampung Boyan, their system is still functioning, but they've had a lot of problems with meeting demand. There's growing demand as well as the microhydro system with changing rain patterns. They've had issues with being able to actually produce enough for the entire village. So they actually switched to a prepaid system several years ago. They started out with a flat rate tariff, just like Kampung Turian. But they noticed from the game that actually they weren't collecting as much as, in the game they were collecting a lot more money than in real life. And so they started to have these discussions of whether they should maybe change out their prepaid system or upgrade it to something which could give them more information on how they're actually using their system. So Kampung Boyan, having had a functioning system for a lot longer, definitely seemed to have a better grasp of their own load profiles, their own decisions, and how that affects collection of funds. And so they actually really took to the game very quickly. They understood the consequences of their decisions, as well as they really appreciated the user interface, how they could see their load profiles, how they could see how much they were using in real time. And they were actually discussing as a community how they could potentially get prepaid systems that would show them similar information so they could make better decisions. For Kampung Timpayasa, they've never actually shared a microgrid system, so it actually did take them a little longer than the other two villages to kind of take to the game. They also they needed to be maybe prompted on sort of remembering to use appliances when they normally use it, because they're not used to actually using an electrification in their homes. So you could definitely see the difference between how a community that has a microgrid and another community that doesn't have a microgrid, and you can see the difference between how they played the games. And so with Timpayasa, because it was the third village out of the three, we were able to kind of prompt them on some uses that were missing. So for example, they were forgetting to turn on their lights at 6 a.m. when it's normally dark, and so we just sort of suggested or asked whether they would normally use lights at that time, and then they remembered that yes, we do normally turn on our flashlights at that time, and they would turn it on. So it took them it took them a little longer to kind of understand the game, but after they did, it was very quick. And we also kind of understand that this game user interface was sort of easy for them to also take to because of smartphone penetration. Smartphone penetration in the three villages is quite high, and so they are quite used to playing with technology and devices, and the computers didn't really scare them. They just they took to it immediately and were playing around with the icons and having quite a lot of fun, as you can see in the pictures. So I think one main lesson that we definitely got from playing the game in the three communities is that it is extremely important to have a strong understanding of the local context, and the social mapping activities definitely helped with that. It helped us to understand their value system better, because that was definitely how they made their decisions and played the game. And so in order to really achieve a high level of community participation, it's very important to make sure that the way they manage the systems aligns with their local value system and their existing institutions and structures. So that's it for the presentation right now. if anybody has any questions so far on the presentation. I know there's a way to enable audio for everybody, and I'm having a little trouble finding it at this moment in time. Oh, you can unmute yourselves. Okay, great.
One question I this is the key. Did you have to like language barrier wise? Did you have to customize anything, or they just picked up the graphics?
Well, we did actually have we actually did prepare a translation of the main components on the user interface. So if I were to go back to the main user interface, especially on the household side, just kind of telling them where you buy your appliances and what the household overview gives you. We prepared that for them. But as we played the game, we actually saw that they kind of pushed it aside, like they didn't really need it, and so they actually took to the graphics a lot. It was actually easier for them to take to the graphics than the translation, and they didn't seem to have any trouble understanding what the numbers meant. And of course, that does mean that they do have to have a certain level of literacy. But we were concerned before that, but they actually, it didn't seem to be a problem for these three communities. It also might help that we seem to have a lot of younger people playing in the games, and so when they broke out into groups, they actually mixed themselves up naturally with younger and older people in the groups, and so the younger people kind of took charge of kind of operating the game interface and then explaining it to the older people. So Viraj's question, I see it on the chat. Did you also observe any changes in the community after you played the game? Well, we did. We conducted some interviews with community users after the game, and we recorded some of these in videos, and so we'll be sharing it soon. And quite a few of them actually said that they understood microgrid operations a lot better, and they saw that it was very useful for them to have real-time information in order to plan out their consumption. And so that was the main gist of, especially coming from Kampung Buayan, where they actually said we want prepaid meters that look like this. And so those kind of it's not necessarily a change, but definitely something coming out of the game was that we observed that they do want to better plan their consumption, better manage their consumption, especially for cost savings. Especially Kampung Buayan, out of the three villages, they were the ones that were the most sort of careful with consumption, because they knew that it immediately meant that they would have to pay it, right? Because they had been using a prepaid system. So for them, they really wanted to be able to plan out their consumption better. And so I think actually, yeah, if they had better tools to do that, I think they would actually. I think you would see a change in how they consume. So I see Vishwa's comment here. he's, thank you, Vishwa. Yes. Mainly for educating community and ensuring immediate short-term commitments. Yes. Yep.
I think that especially for advocating for microhydro, it might help to play the game with donors and government agencies if there's a way to somehow include differences of technologies. For instance, if the game can show the limitations of different technologies and why, if you have a microhydro site, it would be much better in most cases
Yes.
to that than solar mini grids.
Yeah.
With productive use, etc.
Yeah, I agree. We have actually in this latest version that everyone is going to play today, we have an addition that we didn't have back when we played it in June, which is we included an energy storage to the game. And so you can actually see, you not only have to kind of be watching your capacity limit, but also the storage, the energy storage. And so the reason we did this was so that we could actually play a solar microgrid, more realistically in the game. And so for solar, especially, it's really important to have energy storage and be watching it as well. And so we're adding, and we hope that we will get to that stage here where we can address those different technologies. So Vishwa's comment on ensuring sustained engagement. Yeah, well, one thing we really want to do is we want to work together with practitioners and project developers where they can use the game. But if you're working with practitioners that already have strong relationships with the communities, we hope that engagement continues through those organizations.
I have a question for Amatyaji, who's also Vishwa. Amatyaji, do you think someone like Birbadur Galeji and Manjiriji, whether this game would be useful for an entrepreneurial-minded developer, or it's best that they stick with their own ways of mobile?
Yeah, I think this is Vishwa. I guess this will be useful nonetheless, but my concern is still this model this tool will definitely help interaction and raise the awareness, raise the willingness or some kind of engagement with the community. But I still see what we have been doing in the past is most of the time we are trying to ensure capacity building for manufacturers, and we are thinking users do definitely need the energy. But in one of my recent workshops, what we really realized is there a capacity to develop this whole system and run the system? That is where probably during last 30, 40 years, the mini-grid activities has shortfall. What we assume is people will come ahead and operate as a developer of the microhydro, which probably something is wrong with that assumption. Because to become a developer or to see developer to flourish in the rural socio-economic context, they need business, they need access to finance, all those two different issues, which is not existing. So most probably one of the most important thing is the role of the facilitator, which I assume is the developer of the mini grid. to have a capacity built for that facilitator and make him a developer who can mobilize financing, who can mobilize technology, who can mobilize people to make use of electricity. So definitely this will help. If this can help in creating that kind of developer in the community who is willing to go one and two extra mile to ensure mini grid, that would be fantastic.
Great. Well, we're gonna maybe have a short 3-minute break, and then we're actually gonna, have the chance to play the game, and then we can definitely have a more detailed discussion afterwards as well, and talk about using the Minigrid game or learning more about other practices. So for those who are going to join the game, we just need you to open a web browser. And we're going to actually create households, and the households are just going to be named with your names, actually. So we're going to follow the names that are on the attendee list right here. Okay, so I'm going to switch the presenter to my colleague, as he's hosting the game on his computer. Okay, so what you need to do is you need to enter this URL into your web browser. So it's 54.169.79.190. Okay, so I'll show you an example. So on the presenter screen right now, I've got this 54.169.79.190. And if I click on start, I see all these different households. So I'm going to go ahead and join this. And I see this screen now. So you don't normally have to have an operator here. This is just for me to show you an example of how a household looks like. So right now on the operator view, 3 people have joined. So there are 2 more houses that haven't joined yet. 4. Dipti, are you going to be joining? Oh, yes, yes. Sorry. And Biraj, I'm afraid that I think someone said that they will not. Okay. Biraj, are you going to be joining us for the game? Yes, okay. So we'll just wait until you join. In the meantime, let me just show you on the household view what you can do. So this is the household view. And as you can see, you have a house here with 4 rooms. Upper right side here, this corner right here, you have a clock, and this will actually tell you what time of the day it is. On the bottom, below that is your load profile, and below that is your household overview. This gives you your cash box, how much money you have in your household, and then there's also how much money you have, everyone has in the community fund, your energy use, your cumulative cost, your current power, and your max or peak power. To buy appliances, just go to this shopping icon, you click on it, and you have options for different appliances that you can buy. So up here, it tells you how much you have. You have like over here, I have $1,000, and I can use that to buy different appliances. To buy appliances, all I have to do is click, and it asks whether I want to buy it. I click yes, and it automatically shows up in my household. So I'm just going to go ahead and buy and have fun shopping, since it's not really my money. So I can buy. And to get rid of this window, all you have to do is just click outside of that. Now, you can also actually move these appliances into other rooms. Okay, so Biraj, I'm going to show you how to do that. So if you go to a web browser and you put in 54.169, you should come to this page. Do you see this page? Okay. If you click on the start, you should see this. Okay. So someone has joined us. So the community fund and the cash box, let me just explain that real quick. The cash box is how much money you have individually, like as a household. And so this is how much money you have to buy appliances and also pay your electricity bill. The community fund is this fund that is this community, at the community level fund, where when you pay your electricity bills individually, it goes into this community fund. and the system operator can pay for the costs of the system from this fund. So the more the higher bill you have, actually, the more you kind of pay into this community fund. Okay, great. So once everyone has finished buying their appliances, all you have to do is just click I'm ready up here. You can see 3 people have already clicked it, so it's great. On the operator view, so when we play this with communities, we actually don't show this whole view. If you see these tabs on the right here, you can actually turn on and off what you want to show the community. And once you turn off, you choose which ones you want to turn on and off. And you click here on this icon, and this becomes a reporting page. So right now, if I click on it, it'll show all the parameters or the variables that I've chosen from the operator view. Now, the reason is just, sometimes if we're in the middle of playing the game, sometimes we don't, there may be situations where you don't actually want to share all the information. And so this is a way to actually show the community, only some of these variables. So we generally play this game with a projector, and so we project this reporting screen onto a screen so that the whole community can actually view it at the same time. So we don't see their household screens, just like how I right now can't really see your household screens, but everybody can see the operator reporting screen. Okay, so out of that 5, I see 5, out of the 6, 5 users are now ready. Okay. All right, so 6 people already. All right, great. Okay, so I'm just gonna go over the operator view real quick. So if you see here, you can see all the different houses. And if you click on them, you can see how much money they have, and you can actually change it. So the operator does have the power or the control to change how much each household have. You can also change the community fund if you need to as well. Here you have the total system load profile, and you can see that everybody's consumption is colored differently so that you can view that. On the top part here, you have the clock, you have the current system load, you have total system energy consumed, and then you have the community fund. To the left of the clock, you actually have these 5 hearts here, and this actually we call a community happiness index, and this actually just represents the inequality in the households, but purely from a financial point of view. So if, for example, you have houses that have a lot of money and you have houses that have very little money, this index actually starts to fall. So then it's a way for you to actually keep track of maybe one of your neighbors is running out of money. The reason we've done this is because actually the game ends if someone reaches 0 cash box amount. And so you game over in this game if your community fund hits 0 or if one of the households hits 0. Upper left corner here is settings, so you can actually change the installed system capacity and some other parameters as well. So the goal of the game here is to actually make sure that you can finish at least 3 rounds without hitting game over. So you need to finish a certain period or duration that everybody has kind of agreed on without anybody hitting 0 in their cash box. If you do that and you've successfully kind of designed the tariff and the system size, to be something that's, sort of appropriate and sufficient for everybody and acceptable, and everybody agrees on it, then you've successfully completed the game. And so on the right here, you have this menu or this window, and you have the total energy bill. So this would be the bill, the cost of the system. And then you have the total energy use, you have the current load, historical peak, the grid status, which tells you whether the system is running or overloaded. And here you have this energy storage. So this is what we've added to this latest version. So as the system runs, and if you aren't consuming much, this should actually increase and fill up. Now below here, you have the system parameters. So you have installed capacity, and then you also have available system capacity, which will all depend on your capacity reduction, your output reduction, and then also your D-rate factor down here, which you can enter prior to this when you're creating the community. We have 6 households, and then the LCOE that's calculated is 0.19 cents. And so we've set the tariff to be twice of that at 40 cents. Okay. Does anybody have any questions so far? Okay, great. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start the game, and the clock is going to run. And as the clock runs, you can turn on and off the appliances according to how you think you would consume electricity at that point in the day. There are different speeds at which we can play this game, at which we can kind of move the clock. The slowest is 1 tick per minute. And if that's too slow, we can change it to 1 tick for 10 minutes, and so on and so forth. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to start it off at 1 tick equals 1 minute, just until everybody kind of gets used to the game and turning on and off appliances. And then if you feel like it's too slow, then we can speed it up. So the game is going to run for 3 days. That's 1 round. So it's going to show here the round number, the day number, and whether it's AM or PM. So I'm just going to go ahead and start the clock, and everybody can just kind of play around with it for a little while. So I'm going to go to my sample household here and turn on appliances. So I'm going to turn on my TV. So as you can see, it's a bit slow at 1 tick per minute. So this is kind of like real time. Oh, it's overloaded. So we're overloading the system right now, if you can see. But now we're back to it. People have turned it on. The four quadrants don't signify anything. It's just for you to kind of, sort of mentally design your house. If you want to name one the kitchen, one the bedroom, and one the living room, and so on and so forth, that's what you would do here. So it's just kind of, put your appliances in different areas. So I can also show my load profile. So I click on them, And when it turns red, it's on. And to turn it off, I click on them again. And as you can see, everybody's kind of playing around with it right now. So it's going up and down. So normally when we actually play this with a community, before we start the game, we actually have them discuss in their groups a few different things. One is we actually have them come up with their own household name. We also ask them to come up with sort of like a household profile, like their main source of income. And so, that will kind of give them an idea of how much they normally use. And it's a bit of role playing as well. So they normally would consume according to this profile that they've kind of set for themselves. For example, if you're a shopkeeper versus if you're a farmer or a teacher. It also, kind of helps us know what kind of monthly income to give them and how much their cash boxes we should set them at and put into the game. And so that, they'll usually plan out with themselves before starting the game, like what kind of appliances they want, how they would normally consume. And then when we play this sort of like trial round, then they use that to inform how they consume the first round. In order to also help them kind of get used to this clock running and being able to turn on and off appliances, we also break the day into chunks for them, so that so ask them to think about what they do in the morning, what they do midday, what they do afternoon, and what they do at night. And so then we usually in the first round like this, we'll run the clock and then pause, at the appropriate break and have them kind of have some time to think about it a little before going into the next chunk of the day. Okay, so we're still at 10 a.m. So if this is a bit slow, I'm gonna speed it up. Oh, the hearts, right. The hearts is an inequality index, but from a purely cash perspective. So if you have houses that are, you have very high inequality. So some houses have a lot of money, and some houses have very little money. Then those hearts you start to drop in your inequality index. And the reason for this is to kind of keep track of how you're generally doing in the game, because you will hit game over if one of your cash boxes or the community fund goes to zero. And so this is a way for you to know also that someone in your community has actually very little money and someone else has a lot of money. Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna actually speed up the clock to 10 minutes per tick. And so give you a little time to kind of get used to that as well. Right now, you can customize, the operator can customize the appliance ratings before starting the game, but we are going to include in a next following version where you can actually have a customized appliance. So every household has maybe one or two empty appliance where you can put in the price and the watt rating. So that's especially useful if you come across a community that has an appliance that isn't existing in another one, then you can kind of change that. But as it is right now, actually the operator can change, can set the appliances before they start the game. So right now we're at 8 p.m. and this is usually when people start turning on their lights. And we've overloaded the system. Okay, so people are paying attention to the overload. That's great. Normally some people don't, I mean, most people don't actually watch the operator screen. They're too busy kind of on their household screens. And we have to kind of tell them that the system is overloaded right now. So I see Dipti's question on prepaid meters and different tariffs, different payment systems. So when you finish a single round, you can change the settings of the game. And so then you can actually switch between, you can start another round using an energy-based tariff versus a prepaid system versus, right now we have three options, the flat rate tariff. And so when we've played it with communities, what we've done is we start off with the energy-based tariff because that's sort of conceptually easier to understand. And then after that, we play a few rounds and then we change and we play a prepaid system and then they see the difference. And then in discussions, after playing with the prepaid payment, that they usually kind of see for themselves which one they prefer and which one is sort of easier for them to manage as a community. Okay. So I'm going to speed up the game right now because it's getting a little slow. Okay, right now it looks like it's paused, and that's a connectivity issue, actually. So unfortunately. If you noticed earlier in this load profile, we kind of overloaded the system. We have something here where we've set a tolerance of 1 hour. And so if we overloaded the system, it'll run for 1 hour before it shuts down. And when it shuts down, it won't restart until everyone has kind of switched off their appliances. It looks like the game has paused, and unfortunately this is the connectivity issue that we sometimes face. Okay, so I'm really sorry about this. I hope you guys. Well, we still have a few things to work out, and connectivity. We've never played this game online. A suggestion. It will be good to add agro-processing based loads. Yes, we do actually have in the pipeline for our next version is to have a community load, right? So we can actually add something that's being used by the whole community. And so that would be an agro-processing node. So right now, actually, unfortunately, the game looks like it's paused, and this is due to a connectivity issue. So why don't we restart a new game, and I can show you what the settings look like, and we can actually choose a prepaid system. Okay. So right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to refresh. So now everybody's page would have gone back to this page. Okay. So this is what the appliance settings page looks like. So here you can actually change the price and the ratings. Right now, it's set to these appliances, and it's actually coming from a data file. So you could actually change the data file if you have different kinds of appliances in that particular community. So I'm just going to save right now. These are the default values. Here you can change the community name. So you can just say, for example, and then I can change this to 5, and I can pick solar PV. But I'm just going to go ahead and pick microhydro again. Installed system capacity. It looked just now like we were kind of hitting overload, so I'm going to increase this to 3 kilowatts. And then you can see that the LCOE is about 0.19, and I'm going to change this to 0.4. 6 a.m. Okay. So I'm going to create this community. And so here you have this page where you can actually name your households. You can put in a maximum load. You can put in how much they should have in their cash boxes, and then how much the monthly income should be. This is where you pick the payment system. So before we were playing an energy-based tariff, but right now we can switch to this prepaid or a flat rate. And if it's a flat rate, then you can enter the flat rate right here. So here I can put in these names again. Right now, this maximum load doesn't really do anything, but it does scale. It does scale the load profile graph. So. These are random, by the way. I'm not. I'm just putting in. So let's see this. It was interesting that for the communities, there were two out of the 3 communities that actually wanted us to start out with the same amount of initial cash box, even though their monthly incomes were different, and they just thought it was fairer. Okay, so now everybody can go ahead and join. And because I started a new game, so all your appliances are gone, and unfortunately you're gonna have to add them again. Oops, I don't have enough money. click I'm ready. So if 3 out of 5 users is ready. And don't forget to, after you finish buying your appliances, just click I'm ready up here. Great. Okay, so now I'm going to, oh yes, prepaid version, right. So now I'm going to explain to you the difference between the energy-based tariff and the prepaid system. Currently, it may sound a little confusing, but actually when we played it with the community, they tended to, they kind of took, they didn't seem to have any problems with it. So you have your cash box right now, and for example, here I have $76. Right now, I do not have any money in my prepaid account. This number here on this top right, this is the money that you have in your prepaid account. So in my prepaid account, I have 0. So in order for me to be able to use my electricity, I need to put money into my prepaid account. Now, the problem here is that we play for 3 days, and actually at the end of 3 days, it extrapolates to 30 days. So automatically at the end of the round, all your numbers are going to extrapolate to 30 days. So actually right here, when I reload my prepaid account, I'm actually reloading 1/10 of what I truly want to reload the whole month. So for example, if I want to reload $20, I should actually reload $2. So that's the catch here. So I want to reload $20, so I'm going to go ahead and put 2 here and deposit this into my prepaid account. Okay. It should upload, and if it doesn't change, it might change when we've started the clock. Okay. I've still got one user that isn't ready here. Is there anybody that hasn't clicked on ready yet? Remember, at the end of the month, actually, you will get, so it'll extrapolate to 30 days, but you also, you will get an income. You'll get a monthly income as well. Oh, I see, Biraj. You missed it. Let me see. Are you able to start, are you able to just click on ready, even though, or have you already closed it? Yeah, if you can. Okay, great, thanks. So now I'm going to start the clock at 10 minutes per tick, just so that we can kind of speed things up a little. So I'm going to hit the clock now. Oh, right, that's right. So now I can deposit it into my account. So I've deposited $2 into my prepaid account, and now I can turn things on. And if you don't have any money in here, then it won't turn on. So I can turn things on if I wanted to. And as you can see, the prepaid amount starts to go down because you're actually using that up. So the income that you get at the end of the month, I mean, that's just, it's not a an energy budget. It's a monthly income, and then you can use that for your electricity use. So on the operator view, as you can see, this is how much we're using right now. It's nighttime now, so we can turn on the lights. So when we're playing it with communities, I mean, there's this part where people are turning on and off appliances, and this is the part where people are having fun, kind of testing out different things. But sort of the main value of the game, or the main part of the game, really happens in between when the clock is stopped and when you're having discussions and you're kind of reflecting and trying to take in all the things that you've seen from your gameplay. And so we haven't reached the end of a round yet, but let's see. I can speed that up just for us to have that discussion. So right now the clock is it's moving at a lot faster pace. So you can see it's already at day 2. And as you can see on the load profile, this line here is our available system capacity. So you can see a lot of energy not being used during here. I'm just trying to get to the end of the round so that we can have a quick discussion. And also, when we play with communities, they're playing it in groups as well. And so there is a lot of discussion even amongst themselves in their groups, on how they should play and, which appliances should be turned on and off at the time. Okay, so almost. Usually as well, I mean, when we're playing these games, during this period, there's a lot of laughing and sort of people peeking over at other people's screens, trying to see what they're using, and kind of trying to guess, who's using the most, and it's actually quite a fun, dynamic, and playful environment when we're usually playing it with communities. So I've sped it up a little more. So now we're going to get to the end of this round. And if you can see, on my household, I've hit 0. So right now, even though my appliances are on, I'm not consuming anything because I have 0 in my prepaid account. Turn it all off. Okay, thanks, 50. if you run out of money, you can actually add during the simulation as well. So like right now, and then I should be able to add. I've added another $1, which is same as $10 a month, and I can turn on my appliances. Okay. Okay. Unfortunately, I'm not sure why it's paused again. We've never faced this in our testing. Okay. Okay, so since the game refuses to cooperate right now, I'm gonna just have, we can go straight to kind of a discussion, and in the meantime, we can kind of just restart this, and you don't have to play it again. We will just get to the end of the round so that you can kind of see what happens at the end of a round. How about Vishwa, that's a great idea. How about adding a chime every hour and long sound at the beginning of the evening and around 10 p.m.? That's a really good idea. Thank you. Okay, so in the meantime, so you can get a gist. You can get the gist of how the game actually works, and how you can turn on and off appliances and get a load profile and kind of collectively see how, as a community, you can actually view the total aggregated use and make decisions on that. So generally, how we play it with communities is the first round of discussion, we try and talk about sort of how to make the system cost recoverable. So, very quickly we see if it's a prepaid system, we see that whether or not you had sufficient money at the end of the round to pay the system costs, and then if there isn't, then what can we do? Either you lower the tariff. If you don't have sufficient money to pay for the system cost, then you're using too much, so you need to lower consumption, or you increase the tariff and then you use so that you can actually put more money into the community fund. So right now we're going to just actually restart the game, but with 2 users, and we're just going to set that up ourselves and then kind of show you what it looks like at the end of a game round. Okay, so as you see that. So does anybody have any other suggestions or feedback so far, or thoughts on the game? Dipti, I know you said you're thinking how the game can be used for productive end use, gender impact. Any thoughts so far on that? let me just actually give you an example of the kind of discussions that we kind of have when we run it with communities. So we usually, like I said, we start off with an energy-based tariff because that's just a lot easier to understand. And so, you pay how much, you pay for how much you consume, and then you pay it at the end of the month, using your cash box, right? And so generally what happens with that is that people will use and then at the end of the month, they will pay their household bills and it'll go into the community fund. Now, it's either one of two things can happen, right? So either you have sufficient amount in your community fund to pay for your community bill, or you don't. Generally, we try and start out with an amount that's sufficient to pay for at least 1 month. And so the first month, you pay off the cost of the system, and then you can continue with the game. But then very quickly you see that, everybody will see that when you pay for the cost of the system, your community fund goes down, and that they have to pay back into the community fund. So then it becomes sort of more apparent to people how important it is for cost recovery, right? So that you need to be able to pay into the fund a sufficient amount so that you can continue playing the game. So that's kind of the first topic that we try and hit in the discussions. And so very quickly after that, we see whether or not they can continue. And generally, they try and continue for 2 or 3 rounds. And then after that, we switch to a prepaid system. Now, if we switch to a prepaid system, the main difference that they see automatically is that you don't have to, the money gets paid into the community fund before the end of the month. So then, it's all there, right? And so then you have a sufficient amount collected at the beginning of the month or when you reload, and then that automatically gets paid off. Now, one thing that we've put into the game is that if you have an energy-based tariff, you actually have the option of not paying your entire bill. So that's kind of the main key point that people can see immediately. The difference is if you have an energy-based tariff, some people may or may not pay the bill. And with a prepaid system, they have to pay however much they're consuming. Otherwise, it doesn't continue. The game just does not continue. So that's kind of the main difference. And the reason also why, in these 3 communities, they immediately saw that, okay, if we go straight to a prepaid system, we kind of don't have the issue of, whether someone pays or not, or is, effectively kind of stealing electricity, and then it gets paid into the community fund. Now, once they've kind of decided that, then they start to play around with the tariff. So then they start to play around with, we've spent a bit too much this month. We don't really want to spend that much money. Can we play around and see whether we're still able to pay for the system costs? So usually after they've kind of decided which payment system, they kind of switch to deciding what tariff they want to set the system cost, the bills at, right? And then that becomes sort of like, of course, a trade-off between, if you don't want to change the tariff, you can also change the system size, but then you have to start changing the way you consume and your patterns, your load patterns, right? And so that's usually kind of the discussions around that. And then, it'll come out throughout the game and the discussions that they tend to remember how they use other resources, right? So, for example, if they're setting the tariff and then, somebody says it's unfair or somebody says, I have an issue with it, right? And then they go back to how they normally kind of settle these discussions in other contexts or in other uses, right? And use the same kind of process and methodology to solve or to collectively decide on this choice. So here we have, we've set up these systems and they're ready. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to play really fast. Now I just want to show everybody what it looks like at the end of, yes. So now we finished a round, and what it does is it extrapolates to 30 days. So on the operator side, the 3-day simulation is complete, and the next step is it will send electricity bills to the households. So then the households will get a bill, and so they can pay the exact amount of the electricity bill, or they can pay less, or they can pay more, or they can not pay at all. And then this one, pay as well. So then on the operator view, it shows how much has been collected and added to the cash box. Once it's been added to the cash box, then the operator would pay the system bill. So this is how much. And right now, it looks like we don't have enough to pay for the system. So we can choose to not pay. And then now that we've finished paying all the bills, now this is usually when we'll have the discussion on, so what should we do as a community now? Okay, so we've seen how much the bills are, we've seen how much money we need to spend. Should we change any of the community settings? So this is where we can change the settings. So we can change the system capacity, and we can change the tariff, and we can change the max storage limit for the energy storage. Now the operator has the ability to give households more money. So for example, if you start to see that your community inequality index drops, right? And in a community play, they take note of that and they say that, oh look, we have one household that doesn't have sufficient money to pay for their bills. They can actually decide as a community whether they want to give that person a loan, or whether that person, they're going to give them a cash award or something, and the operator can actually change the individual cash boxes. You can also have the households pay more at this point into the community fund as well. So you can also change the community fund here. So what this would mean is, for household A, if household A wants to donate some money to the community fund, you just take it out of their cash box and you put it into the community fund. So there are these discussions or these decisions that are also going on in the game where they have to keep an eye on their inequality index so that they don't end the game, they don't hit game over, and they can actually move money around in the community. So that's kind of the gist of the game. And so far, does anybody have any questions? Okay. So I'm just going to show you one last thing before we kind of close this, and then we can go on to talking. We're going on to a knowledge exchange session. We have included this into the game, and this is to make it, more fun, sort of give it more gaming aspect to it. We have these event cards at the household level and at the community level. So it draws a household event card at the beginning of the round. And what this does is it has an unexpected event that you may have, and where you may have to spend money or you may get money. This is just kind of to add a little more fun to the game. And it doesn't become so monotonous, just kind of playing on and off appliances. And then, if you see that your household cash box is low, you can actually sell your appliances if you want, and you can get more money. And then after that, you have a community event. Okay, so what happened here is that we had to repair something and our cash box here went to zero, went to negative, and that means that we immediately game over. So then we do have to have sufficient money in the community fund as well. So they actually, it's more fun, and they do actually have to kind of make sure that they're planning ahead and they have sufficient money in the community fund and their cash boxes to kind of also, plan ahead for things that may be unexpected outcomes and they lose money on things. So, yeah. Finalize, and that's, now you can resume. But, we've kind of gamed over. So that's the game so far. If we don't have any questions, we can go straight to kind of a session where we're exchanging thoughts and ideas, and we would really love to hear as well from you on how you normally do your community engagement in planning, in energy planning. I think we only have Dipti left. I just noticed that. So so Dipti, what do you think so far? Oh, I see. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I missed Ali. Ah, okay. Okay. I'm not sure why you're having trouble accessing. I actually see two accounts here. Yeah. Oh, there you are.
Hello, are you?
Hello. Hi.
I think Ali is still there, but maybe not. Yeah, thanks for demoing the game. It's really helpful to see it and then engage with it. It's really nice to know how the workshops went at Sabah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm wondering how to test among our members. I know several of the ones that the game would be appropriate for didn't attend today, but I think they would actually like to try the game. We'll definitely send them this webinar. Yeah, would you like to try in more settings?
Yes, we would. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we're looking to find more partners and more organizations that will that we can work with to try it out more and help us kind of continue development of the game. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And for those who they're gonna listen to the recording of this, if anybody has questions after this, you can definitely follow up with them. We can have discussion through just email us or reach out to us, and we can continue discussing.
Yeah, knowing that it probably costs, somewhat to do the game in a different context.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking of the many big fund for global development research that are especially approaching Myanmar right now, but I think they would be interested to try in other places where my goal is to really make the research useful for local actors and not just a publication that,
Right.
because it just defeats the whole purpose in
Yes.
my eyes for
Yeah.
So I think the game could be a nice tool for learning-based or also the other point that HPNET we would like to highlight in any effort is the importance of two-way learning. So, and it shouldn't just be external actors coming in teaching local or the other way around, but both ways we want diverse stakeholders to engage with each other. So for those two reasons, I think the game could be a tool for some of the research requests coming up. I mean, we can talk offline about this, but in general, put that out there.
Mm-hmm.
So for instance, as I mentioned, someone wants to study gender and the impact on and from productive end use. That's one topic, and yeah, productive end use is actually a big research topic.
Yeah. And I can definitely imagine the game being used in different contexts and kind of in as an educational tool for sort of different themes in energy. And of course, I just wanted to add on also, we are looking for partners to help us, deploy the game, right? And it can be used. It can be used for new systems or systems that still could be improved. So it's not just used for planning a new system, right? It's also kind of to improve like existing management. And like you said earlier, it's an important, productive end use is an important area that we can use the game for, and we are thinking of ways to include different community loads that we can use to kind of explore how to improve productive use using mini-grid systems. And how,
Oh no, go ahead, Iris.
And also sort of, with that as well, like, looking at sort of, financial investment in community loads and those kind of different, how those are intertwined and making decisions on that.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, I was going to say there are a number of, some efforts wanting to finance productive end use.
Mm-hmm.
And this idea of the cash box and appliances costing. It's not just about using the electricity. And the game has a lot of useful features. This one on the 3 different types of tariff settings, flat, tariff energy, and then prepaid could also be very useful. So I know a number of our members are thinking about prepaid meters and are not sure if they're worth the investment. And in new projects, we can also understand this better.
Yeah.
I know that we've talked about this before, but of course the game is meant for the community, but it excites me to play it with decision-making stakeholders.
Yes,
to keep them real.
No, yeah, that is an exciting use of the game as well. Yeah, to kind of inform decisions at that level as well, and to give like a better understanding of how the policies that they set are kind of affecting the use of mini grids. Yeah. So yeah, great.
In terms of new developments, what are the key things, or this is the vision, most of the vision you had in mind now already in place?
Oh well, the early vision was kind of we wanted it to be used by communities and practitioners, right? But as we developed it and we saw that it really had a lot of use as an educational tool as well, and so we do hope that it can be used, in universities, in research institutes, and like you said, and policymakers can use it as well to learn a little bit more about mini-grid management and the different policies set. And so now there's kind of like a larger vision with the game. But we definitely, we're going to go in stages, and right now we're going to try and deploy with practitioners and project developers, and use that to refine the game, and better develop it for the next kind of stage of use, I would say. We also want to have another sort of version of the game where I think I've told you this before, where the user interface isn't the computer but an actual physical like board, an electronic board that looks like a household with mini appliances. And this will be for communities which have less smartphone penetration, less sort of familiarity with technology and smart devices, and so then you can still use it in those contexts as well. So that's kind of where we're at right now. We're trying to move. Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah. Thank you for organizing this. I'm sorry we didn't have as many people join in real time, but I look forward to sharing parts of the recorded version with members.
Yeah. And thank you for being understanding with some of the connectivity issues, but we're in the middle of trying to sort that out, or at least have the ability to kind of know when those problems are cropping up. Usually when we have it with the communities, if you have a strong kind of Wi-Fi signal, that kind of avoids that issue there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it wasn't so bad.
Yeah, great. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
great. We can end.
Yeah.
Okay. Again. Thank you so much for joining in. Really appreciate it. And we hope that everyone kind of enjoyed the gameplay, and we were happy to share what we learned from the game and the workshops. And we look forward to receiving more comments, input on the game as well. If anybody wants to contact us, you can email us at info@enactpartners.org, or myself, A. Abdullah, @enactpartners.org. And you can find us also on our website, www.energyactionpartners.org. Okay, thanks. I'm going to end the recording now. Thank you so much.